Okay, everyone. So in this episode, we're gonna talk about insecurity, something that maybe most of us have. And today, I'm glad that I'm accompanied by my co-host Yixin, and also my former podcast crew Dito here.
Hello.
Okay, how are you, Dito?
I think we're not off to a good start, but I'm good.
Yeah. How is it to be back on your podcast routine, recording on Saturday?
Feels nostalgic, first and foremost, I think, because I've been to this place a couple times as a podcast crew. So.
Also MUN, right? You were here.
Oh yeah. I was here for the after SJ MUN. We had like a celebratory meeting just between the chairs and the host.
Yeah.
So I know this place quite well.
Yeah, thank you for Felix for letting us record in this cafe, Lana Coffee Roasters. So Yixin,
Yes.
The topic today, insecurities. I think it is something that we all can relate, regardless the age, whether you're girls or boys. Sometimes maybe people just think insecurity is only the girls who are being insecure, and most of the times it's related to like body image or social anxiety.
At times, people don't even realize that they're experiencing insecurity when deep down they are. You know what I mean? So I think this would be a great topic to talk about that everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So Dito, when we talk about insecurity, what's your opinion?
On insecurity, I think most of it, for me, it comes down to socializing or at least interacting with others. I always think about what they judge of me. So I would consider that insecurity towards me, or from me at least.
Okay.
So as you may know, another term that is commonly used to connect with insecurity is anxiety. But do you think there is a very noticeable difference in them, or are they similar in every aspect?
I think they are similar in some aspects. It induces, that feeling of nervousness whenever you're faced with that sort of like situation. Let's say when I'm talking to a stranger, or I would say insecurity is that it's the main aspect that comes into play when you start talking to that stranger. It triggers that insecurity for you, and then anxiety is that state of mind that you get into when you trigger that insecurity. So the difference, I would say, is one is like a feeling that you have immediately, while insecurity is more of like that dormant trauma deep inside you that triggers when, let's say, that sort of situation occurs.
Yeah, and I think based on the terms itself, anxiety is the state of emotion that can lead to, like for example, anxiety disorder, while insecurity can lead to a lot of things like trauma or phobia. Well, that's considered anxiety disorder, or like mood disorder like depression. So insecurity, I guess it's more like, a lot of things that makes us think that it's our weaknesses, and it makes us uncomfortable.
So from that statement alone, do you think it's okay to feel insecure? Or is it something that we shouldn't be having because it makes us look weak, it makes us feel weak,
I think in this day and age, mental health has been the most important as it is, because in the age of the communication and the digital age, we tend to compare ourselves in every aspect. So in that sense, I think it's fine to be insecure, because nowadays everyone does feel insecure about something. So it's not a matter of looking or feeling weak in front of people, but more so that if you have that insecurity, it's fine because everyone has it, and maybe they just don't want to show it.
I do agree with you, because nowadays I look at everyone around me, like my friends, my cousins, my family members, they seem to be more open with their insecurities, with like with an aspect that they feel weak about, they're not scared to share it nowadays because it's okay. It's okay to share your feelings, right? So that's
Yeah, it's common.
it's common nowadays.
So I would like to add to that, but preferably showing your insecurities, it's okay, right? But it depends on who you show it to as well. If it's like your friends that you really trust, or your family who really understands you, I would say that you should be showing, you know, your insecurities to them, because they won't judge you for what it is or for who you are, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, I see insecurity. It's okay. First of all, it's okay. It's part of being human, and I see insecurity as a spectrum, like the destructive and not destructive. So sometimes insecurity actually can help us to like know our weakness and try to identify our weakness and try to improve that if that's something we can change. But there are also other people who treat insecurity or develop insecurity to be destructive. That's why they do self-harm, or they try to avoid like social meetings badly, or like not going to prom just because people who think you don't have partner to go to prom just because of that. So that's like just like example that I could think of right now.
I think I understand what Miss is trying to say, because okay, I can be a bit transparent about this one, but I think the insecurity I feel is meeting strangers online, you know, like maybe it'll be through a Discord chat, or like if you're playing Valorant with randoms, you know. Sometimes when you play with them, you get that insecurity, like you don't know what they judge of you. So like to combat that, I sort of like think that it is necessary to, you know, be at least proficient or competent, because otherwise I have that fear that, you know, they'll judge me, or they call me like, oh, you're bad at this game, why are you playing this?
But if you meet people online, you don't see their face.
That's true. I don't even know what they look like, but
So
I just have that irrational fear.
Okay.
So now I'd like to move on to my next question. So we all have experienced insecurities before, right? How would you describe that feeling? How would you describe how it makes you feel, or how does it impact the way you think about life in general?
I'd say when facing like or when socializing with strangers for me, right? Sometimes it just shuts down my rational thinking, you know. Like I've read a book about the logical and emotional thinking. You should always be rational at most times. So, but if I'm insecure about it, sometimes it just backtracks and goes back to my emotional thinking. So I don't really think straight. I think based on my emotions.
I mean, yeah, I do agree with you, because I also have some insecurities within my social life, and I sometimes feel like when someone is judging me, I don't think about the good things, you know. I always just think about the negative aspect of what they'll think of me. I'll just be like, oh, they must think I look ugly. Oh, they must think I'm annoying, or some sort of thing. So I guess insecurity also just drastically just changes your way of thinking, like from up to bottom, you know.
Yeah.
Just hit rock bottom immediately.
Yeah, especially the way you think about yourself, which actually one of the most important aspect in life, because what you view about yourself, it's important, because once you have your own like self-worth, self-esteem, what other people think about you wouldn't really, you know, destroy you, because you already have that self-worth.
Yeah, it's just more like you think about what others think about yourself rather than what you think about your own self, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think your actions also reflect how you think of yourself, in a sense, because sometimes you tend to like project your own failures to someone, if that makes sense, right? Like, if you get called like a bunch of names, sometimes you would call other people names. Maybe that's like that instant counter attack towards that insecurity.
Yeah. So you like project your insecurities
Towards other.
towards other. I think I found like this kind of cases in parents, because sometimes parents try to project their own insecurities in their children. They try to push them or treat them in a way that to cover up the parents' insecurities.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the way that parenting way is not comfortable for the children.
Yeah. It becomes sort of like a cycle if you think about it.
It's like a never-ending cycle. Sort of.
Yeah, because the kids absorb that insecurity,
Yeah.
and then they may feel inclined to do it to the next generation.
Yeah. There's like one saying, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that in Facebook, but that's true.
Yeah. And actually earlier I told one of my podcast member here, actually if now especially in teenagers, in your friendship, sometimes you might experience comparison, like social comparison or conflicts, friendship dramas, and being jealous of someone. Actually, not only teenagers, but as adults also. Even though they are already 30s or 40s, sometimes they still behave like a teenager. And like social jealousy, social comparison, being envious to others, actually that reflects your own insecurity. Why you're envious, why you're jealous of that particular person? Maybe because there's something that you don't have.
That
It's
they
a deep-rooted trauma.
Yeah. So
I can see where you're going this, because I noticed that within my friend groups, they always try to compare themselves with not just each other. Actually, there's always something they have to compare themselves with. And of course, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I think at the end of the day, we're gonna still compare ourselves with something. But I feel like if you do it too much, that's just bad for you.
It becomes
Destructive.
It's
obsessive.
You become more obsessed with comparing yourself rather than trying to find out what's wrong with you, what's making you feel like this.
yeah, totally agree.
So that moves on to my next question. Whenever you experience insecurity, do you always try to find out what's the root problem of it, or do you just let it happen?
Many times I do try to understand what the root cause is, especially like when I get home, when I start like resting or just like praying, I think about like the events that happened, right? And what causes me insecurity, and I always try to find that root cause.
Yeah.
And maybe I do understand, let's say it's my trauma or it's back in my childhood, but there's really not much that I do about it, except for just like, you know what, I'll just let it go. It's at that point I just have to accept that it may just be me, so I have to move on from it.
Yeah.
Interesting that he mentioned about childhood, because the reasons why we experience insecurity is the life experiences, and especially in childhood. In our school years, we encounter like maybe parents' expectation, the way they parent us, parenting, and also when we socialize with others, that can shape our like expectation towards ourselves, and that kind of create the seeds of like insecurity when you don't match to those expectations. So yeah, childhood can affect.
I think it is one of the major aspects in developing like that root cause of insecurity in the first place, because you're really introduced to it at like a very young age, and usually in most cases you become more familiarized with it, and as you grow up with it, it develops and eventually turns into what you say. It can be destructive or it could be mild.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, and I also tried to find like the root problem of my insecurities as well, because I feel like if I just let it happen, it's not gonna get any better, is it?
Yeah.
It's just gonna keep getting worse and worse, and something bad may happen,
Yeah.
So
Correct.
That's just what I think, basically.
Yeah, me too. Like whenever I feel uncomfortable about something, that's actually a sign. A sign
that you have to do
that,
something.
Yeah, I have to do something. There's something wrong that I need to work on. So yeah, for me, I like look back because I know like human needs are like what kind of needs that I'm lacking that make me stress. So whenever I try to look at myself, it's like iceberg. Like the tip of the iceberg are all the stresses that I have, and what's underneath is the one that I need to investigate what's wrong. For example, when I got angry at my students and I feel bad about it, I try to analyze what's wrong. Oh, maybe it's because the need of being respected that's violated. That's why I was angry or insecure. What kind of needs? Maybe the needs to belonging to a group. That's why you feel left out when the friends doesn't invite you, or you don't have someone to go to prom with. What else? The need to be validated.
Validated, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that comes from parents. Like, most kids want validation from their parents, and maybe if they don't get that at like young and early age, maybe they start projecting that to others.
You mean like seeking from others?
Seeking validation from others, like
Yeah.
through other sort of means, even to
Yeah.
the extremes.
Yeah.
Maybe not as realistic, maybe not as fictional as like some anime stories do depict it. Like some of these characters, they really just want that acceptance from their father, so that they would like go to extreme lengths to do it. Like,
So it seems like, we all have experienced some form of insecurity, right? Like, such as we compare ourselves with each other, we just think about how others think about us, and the desperation for validation. So we know that insecurity is bad, but have you ever thought of it as, have you ever think your insecurity, like you're grateful for it, you're grateful for having insecurity as you're taking it as a learning process, or you're grateful to feel pain because that's what makes us human,
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
a
thing.
great question, Yixin. What do you
should
think?
I answer this first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think in some cases, insecurity can be okay. I actually already mentioned the example, right? It can be that driving factor for you to like really excel at something because seeking validation from your parents. It can be like something that really drives you. It can be motivation. But on the other hand, insecurity can also lead to many destructive decisions as well, irrational decisions that don't really align with your goals or the human needs that you want to pursue, for example.
I mean, I do agree with you because I feel like if you just focus on your insecurity way too much, eventually it's just gonna take over your life. You're just gonna have to try to feel validated over and over again.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just gonna lead to destruction,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
How do you think about this, Miss Pauline?
Yeah, correct. I ever experienced insecurity in a form of I'm ambitious. Actually, I was overachiever in my school years and my college years, and actually overachiever is a sign that you're quite insecure about recognition from others, the needs to achieve, to
yes.
perform the best, to prove to others that you're capable. So I was stressed when I was doing my thesis. I spent my college year, especially when I took my master, less sleep because I have to do a lot of stuff. I don't do social life. Like they were asking me to go out. Come on, let's go out. But I was just too focused on doing my academics that time academics was part of my identity. Unconsciously, I put it that way. So when my academics is flop, my identity is was shaken because I use it as part of my identity because I'm overachiever. I'm a good student.
I think I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Overachieving.
Yeah.
Back when I was younger, right? I usually thought myself no, I thought myself to be like that person who really just excels at like studies, right? So as I got older, I did connect that to my identity, as Miss said. So like right now, I'm struggling to do my like EEs and IAs because I really expect them to be good. But the more I really stress about it being good, the more work that I'm not actually getting done in the end of the day. So it's like Icarus flying to the sun, you know. And as he flies really far beyond that sun, the wings break and he eventually just falls, right? So it's a sign that being overambitious is not really healthy as well.
So now that we're in the present, have you ever looked back in the past and do you always want to just try to tell something to your younger self, or do you just want to change something to prevent a certain something that happened due to your insecurities?
I can't really think of any examples right now, but as a general advice, I'd tell my younger self not to think too hard about it, because I usually overthink things, especially in studies. I always think whether is this project going to the right direction that I want it to, or is it going as well as I wanted to? But the more I thought about that stuff, the more I was actually stuck in just the planning process. I haven't done anything. So I would tell myself not to worry about the academics, not to worry about what people think of me, and just to do it, and just to be grateful and like bersyukur about your like final grade.
So I also have noticed something. When you guys told me your experiences with insecurity, I see some sort of pattern. So that leads me to my final question. So what would you say to be the solution to your insecurities?
Maybe do you have some like daily practice?
Or any coping mechanisms that you like to stick to every now and then?
Well, first and foremost, I pray every single day. So like at least 4 or 5 times a day. Sometimes I skip subuh because like I don't wake up early, unfortunately. But each time I pray, it's I would say it's like a space for me to meditate and just clear my mind of that anxiousness, that insecurity I get at school or maybe at home, and it just lets me be free of my mind and just gives me a space to really think rationally about what I want to do next. So I think that's one of these solutions, is just having that clear mind. But another solution to combating insecurities directly is just facing it head on, like just getting into that risk, but not thinking about what they judge of me. Like just trying to talk to other people, let's say for me, trying to talk to strangers on Omegle, something like that. Like it's challenging, but the more I do it, the more I get used to it, and the more you get used to it, it sort of just overlaps that feeling of anxiousness and replaces it with a common familiarity, for example.
How about you, Miss? What are your coping mechanisms for dealing with insecurity?
For dealing with insecurities, one of it may be similar to what the second point that Dito shared, to get used to train yourself to get used to your fear or insecurity. Like for example, if you're afraid of being rejected, if I'm afraid of being rejected by my students, Miss Pauline, it's not fun or boring. I received that a lot in my lower grade because for some reason, boring, or I don't like you as a teacher. I'm just practice to get used to those comments. Face it.
So that it doesn't bother you in the future.
Feel it, experience it until it doesn't make you feel, uncomfortable.
Don't let those words control you.
Yes, control my thoughts and emotion, and like define me. Like, one person comment bad about me, and then I take it as, I'm a bad person. So not like that. So I try to practice to get used to uncomfortable situation, and also I think, like in Dito's case, praying, getting yourself close to your creator is important.
Do you meditate as well?
Sometimes, meditate.
I think that's also important. But It's like if you have meditation and prayer, like it's like two factors that would just help you clean your mind at once. So it just like you erase all the words inside your brain right now. And you're basically like an airhead, you're thinking of nothing.
And because you're finally in peace, you don't have to overthink about everything that you went through earlier or anything. So it's just you. It's just you, yourself, and nothing else. It's just peaceful and calming that way.
Yeah, but and during those meditation is where we have to give a positive input, because we don't also want to let our mind be corrupted by negative thoughts when we're like in silence or quiet. I'm a kind of like word of encouragement person. So there was actually one time that I couldn't tell to people, and I have to like face this by myself. And one morning when I feel like I lack of motivation to do my day, I opened ChatGPT. I type my prompt, give me morning encouragement to do my day, but because I'm Christian, I said in a biblical way. And then it gave me, and I read it, I wrote it, and I put it on my office, but now it's in my room. So yeah, that's what I did.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting way to cope, actually.
That's a positive use of ChatGPT. I think, well, it seems like AI giving me encouragement.
Yeah.
So there's always ways. Don't give up. This is what people who gave up in life think. They think that no one cares about them. Even though no one cares about you, you will get through it.
Yeah,
like you still have your creator. You still have any way to motivate yourself.
I think to add on to that, it's also a matter of just living in the present time, not in the past and the future. The past would only just give you feelings of regret, and the future would just make you worry and doubt yourself further. So living in the present tense and just holding on to it alongside with God, of course, right, is technically the way to live if you think about it.
Yeah.
So now that we're at the end of our podcast, would you like to give some sort of advice to our audiences who may experience insecurity right now, or anything? Like a short sentence or an activity that you would recommend for them to do?
Live in the present tense. Don't live in the past tense, that will only make you regret further. But also don't live in the future. You just worry about it. Okay, I just said that like twice.
And I'm
Yes.
continuing what Dito said. If you want to live in the present and maybe you still feel like there is past emotional baggage, then my advice is deal with it. Deal with them, solve it. Do not avoid.
I mean, I like to continue Miss Pauline's sentences, because I do think that insecurity leads to you always thinking about your past actions and your life choices. So I don't think you should think about that. The past is the past. You can't change it, right? There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So I like to think that you should just focus on the future per se. Just think about what will happen instead, not what had happened, you know.
Okay.
Basically.
All right. Yeah, I like this discussion. Actually, I like this session. I can talk deeper and give real life examples. Yeah, good, fruitful discussion.
I think
Thank
this
you, Dito.
podcast is also like this podcast everyone can relate it basically.
Yes,
Everyone can
yes.
relate to it.
Yeah. All right. So we end our episode.
So thank you guys for watching, and I hope that this podcast teaches you some new ways to cope with insecurity and teaches you in depth of it more, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.